in chat. In chat, if you can hear me. I know Sam, phosphocreatine was the answer in energy system 1, and glucose or glycogen to pyruvate was the answer in energy system 2. Now, there are some nuances about those systems that we discussed last week, things like how fast they fatigue, things of the aerobic system, and how important this system is in regards to rest, exercise, high performance sport is absolutely ridiculous. So I think that the first two systems, ATP-PC and glycolytic, can be explained simply, and we're only going to review them in bits and pieces in the second half of the semester. The aerobic system has so much to give, but what we're going to do today is still try and get that same answer about the aerobic system as we did with the other two. What did we do with the other two? How did we get the energy? That is what we want to answer. How does this system give us energy to bind ADP and phosphate together? So if we can get that answer, we can understand the aerobic system today. So that's what we're starting with. Basic idea about this one is it's a low to medium intensity system. Last week, I kept using the same example, ATP. So what I'm giving you here to begin with is our basic overview of the aerobic system. Yes, there is a lot of chemical steps in here, but what I want to know is each phase of the system and why we've got each phase. Don't trip up on the complexities of the system when you know I'm going to summarize it for you and highlight the important bits. Yeah, so let's do it. 3 phases to the aerobic energy system. The first phase is our acetyl-CoA generation. What you're looking at on the screen, that's acetyl-CoA. It's a component in the body that we use to start off the aerobic energy system. Now, the thing about acetyl-CoA is our starting product in the system, and conveniently, we can produce it from our 3 macronutrients. Think about how we've used these macronutrients up until now. I introduced you to some of the terms last week. If I want to use carbohydrates, I can use to produce acetyl-CoA, I can use pyruvate. We've met pyruvate last week because the glycolytic system produced it. Great. So I can use carbohydrates to start off my aerobic energy system. What else can I use? I can use fatty acids. Yeah. I can use amino acids. So I've got carbs, fats, and proteins can all be used in the aerobic energy system. If you have done any biochemistry before, you might know it as the Krebs cycle, named after Krebs, the researcher who discovered that it was a cycle, or you might know it as the citric acid cycle. Either way, in Ex-Phys, we're commonly calling it the Krebs cycle. Now, Krebs cycle is actually the nightmare of many exercise physiology students. Like, if you ask them from the past or maybe a different institution, they'll just tell you that, well, I remember having to do anaerobic glycolysis. I remember having to memorize 10 steps. And I remember having to memorize this damn cycle, this Krebs cycle. I had to remember all these terms on there. That is not essential to our knowledge in regards to how the body performs exercise. If you're interested in the biochemistry, great. There are all these chemical equations that produce a cycle and a circle, but that is not what we want to know. We know that we've got acetyl-CoA as our starting product, and we need to do something to it to eventually produce energy. So the function of this is twofold. Number one, the Krebs cycle is going to take acetyl-CoA and it is going to load it with hydrogen ions. That's what we need. So we're getting acetyl-CoA and it's going to begin to load hydrogen ions into our carriers. I think I just said it's going to load acetyl-CoA, which is incorrect. So we've got acetyl-CoA, we're going to turn it into our carriers, and we're going to load those carriers with hydrogen ions. Okay? So the carrier names at the bottom here, NADH and FADH. Now, for those, there's always someone who asks, I don't want to let you down. Okay? Is I can get energy. Once again, we're seeing that we have a starting product. We have NADH and FADH, which are loaded with hydrogen ions. And then as I unload those hydrogen ions, I'm able to produce energy. So that is our 3-step process. Now, what I've got on there is our equation, and this is the equation that we needed from last week, and we use it again. Because we know in the body, we've got as much ADP as we need. We've got as much phosphate as we need. Both of them, we have as much as we need at all times. The reason we have our 3 energy systems is their name tells us they are there to make energy. So we just found out how we can use the aerobic energy system to make energy. Great. This process, the whole thing, up until now, oxidative phosphorylation. So this process is when we are oxidizing and we are using that oxidation to produce phosphate onto our ATP. Okay, so we had ADP, we wanted the phosphate to combine with it. The chemical term for that is phosphorylation. It's like phosphatizing it, okay? Whatever you want to say, the formal way of saying I get phosphate and I put it back in to the system that I want. And loaded with the hydrogen ions. And then I'm sending them to the electron transport chain. And Steve's told me that this formal process is called oxidative phosphorylation. Okay. But you know what's funny? It sounds like I've finished what the system is doing. But it would not make sense, would it? It wouldn't make sense. Because the name of this system is the aerobic system, and I haven't said oxygen yet. How can I have the energy that I needed already if I haven't said oxygen yet? And just to be specific, I didn't skip oxygen in one of those equations. Yeah, oxygen was not present in all of those. So then what is the oxygen for? The oxygen is to clean up the mess. So here's a summary of the system. We know the fuel source. We are going to get into the efficiency of the system. It is our most efficient energy system by far. Times 10 compared to the glycolytic system is actually like a pretty comfortable. Like it's even better than that. I'm being conservative with a times 10 measurement. 2 minutes onwards, we're going to, even if we present you with slightly different things in an exam setting, we will not go off track and try and confuse you in any way, because we want you to know the three energy systems and the expectations at this point. And if you understand why each of those are the way that they are, great, because there won't be any variation to that. So you've put a lot of work in so far for those energy systems, and we want to reward you by having that clear knowledge of it already. This is a summary slide. There's actually no new information on here at all. I just thought I'd put them all together. So at the end of last week's lecture, I had the ATP-PC and the glycolytic systems. I had them on slides next to an image each. I think for the ATP-PC, I had the high jumper, and then for the glycolytic, I think I had the watt bike on there. So there's a picture next to both of them. I'm not going to get the best deal, but you have asked your body to do something that it is not the best at. Our bodies are the best at and the most efficient at our aerobic energy production. But if you want to put our body into like overdrive, if you want to press the turbo button and you want us to sprint, or if you want us to go to high intensity, you are asking the body to make a sacrifice. You will not be as efficient, but I will be able to give you the energy that you seek. Your sprint speed, if I was moving into the glycolytic system. So that means as soon as that 10 seconds or so runs out, your sprint speed will decrease.